Policymakers, researchers and civil organizations across the world gathered at the 10th Annual Ibadan Sustainable Development Summit ISDS 2019, organized by the Center for Sustainable Development, CESDEV, University of Ibadan, in collaboration with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, ISDS, as they discussed the way forward for sustainable development in Nigeria on the theme Building and Sustaining Strategic Partnerships for the Sustainable Development Goals. The 10th ISDS 2019 three-day conference opening ceremony was held at the Gamaliel Onosade Hall, International Conference Center, University of Ibadan, Nigeria, aimed at strategizing, breaking of silos and forging of partnerships among various stakeholders, policymakers, the academia, corporate organizations, researchers, community leaders and civil society in achieving Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs) in the world. In his welcome remark, Professor Olanrewaju Olaniyan, the director, CESDEV, University of Ibadan, said, "We welcome everybody to the 10th Annual Ibadan Sustainable Development Summit, ISDS, in Ibadan, which is a summit about sustainable development. Of course, we are happy to have everybody seated here, and I am sure it is a summit for learning. One thing that is instructive to note is that the Center for Sustainable Development, CESDEV, University of Ibadan, was established in 2010, and when we started, the whole world had not started talking about the SDGs. The Sustainable Development started 5 years later, which shows the pioneer attitude of the University of Ibadan. Since then, we have always had this summit, and our center has been at the forefront of pushing forward this idea of sustainable development, not just through summits like this, but also by writing people to a particular discourse that would be a development policy one. Experiences over the years have shown that a lot of knowledge exchange and knowledge sharing has opened within the center and the university. We thank everybody for coming to this three-day summit at the University of Ibadan." In his own introductory remark, Professor Labode Popola, the Director, Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN Nigeria, and Vice-Chancellor, Osun State University, Nigeria, said the SDSN Nigeria, hosted at Center for Sustainable Development, University of Ibadan, is Africa's pioneer SDSN and has come a long way, organizing series of capacity-building programs nationally, beginning from 2013. The network has created 5 thematic research groups which encompass 5 Ps, namely People, Planet, Peace, Partnership and Prosperity. These groups are Human Well-being and Economic Development, Education, Empowerment and Gender Equality, Sustainable Cities, Infrastructure, Production and Consumption, Environmental Health, Conservation of Natural Resources and Climate Action, Social Justice, Inclusive Growth, Peace and Partnership. Professor Labode further stated that it is instructive to say that SDSN Nigeria has been building partnerships for some time and is poised to forge even more collaborations spanning across the academia, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, civil society, organized private sector, charities and foundations, among others. In her opening address, Professor Janice E. Olawoye said, "As we recognize the global nature of the SDGs, we must also remember the significant roles of stakeholders at the local level. It is good to see the involvement of NGOs at the summit as they are closer to the grassroots, and also that there is a special session on youth. Without conscious efforts to confront the problems facing the youth today as they try to secure a livelihood and a voice in the affairs of the society, there can be no sustainable development now or in the future." Speaking on empowerment about gender issues, Professor Janice Olawoye hoped that through the summit, careful attention would be given to gender issues and women empowerment to ensure meeting the 5th SDG as well as benefits of all SDGs would be accessible to all. Professor Olawoye, however, appealed to the participants at the summit to be mindful of those who were not there to lend their voices and concerns to the discussions and to try to build sustainable strategic partnerships that will provide a platform to also incorporate their needs. In his address as the chairman, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ibadan, Professor Abel Olayinka Idowu, who was ably represented by the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Administration of the University, Professor K.O. Adebowale, said the Ibadan Sustainable Development Summit, ISDS, has continually provided a forum for researchers and practitioners to convene and discuss activities that encourage sustainable development at the national, regional, and global levels. The ISDS has since 2010 been addressing various dimensions of sustainable development and the way they shape humanity and the planets that we inhabit. In order to achieve the SDGs, we need to forge strategic partnerships with all stakeholders in the actualization of the goals. One main issue of the past is that there is a difficulty in getting the relevant stakeholders acting together at the right time and place to solve complex sustainability issues. Sustainable development fundamentally involves different stakeholders operating at different scales, from government to private corporations. It is necessary to have the right stakeholders working together at the right time and place. There is a growing realization that addressing these challenges will require stakeholders to come together. This coordination will address poverty, health, education, water, and other issues within the SDGs. The VC further stated that there is need to ensure responsibility and accountability for progress towards meeting the SDGs. Mechanisms to actualize this must incorporate all parastatals, public and private, and individuals. While the goals can drive global efforts towards a sustainable and poverty-free world, the SDGs are likely to fail unless far more attention is given to addressing challenges crucial to their implementation. We cannot continue to work in silos. Strategic partnerships and collaborations will assist in achieving the goals and leaving no one behind. It is my belief that this summit will address these issues and provide policy-relevant options and solutions. In his keynote address, Professor Olu Ajakaye, Executive Chairman, African Center for Shared Development Capacity Building, said, "This program actually requires revitalized global partnerships, and that is to facilitate intensive global engagement in support of the implementation of the goals as well as target. And in doing so, is to bring together the government, private sector, civil societies, United Nations system, and other actors." One important feature of this SDGs is the explicit recognition of partnership as an important means of implementation of the goals enunciated in Goal 17. In the elaboration of Goal 17 of the SDGs, several issues were covered, including finance, technology, capacity building, trade, and systemic issues. The systemic issues covered include policy and institutional coherence, multi-stakeholder partnership and data, monitoring and accountability, Professor Ajakaye said. Ajakaye further stated that the upshot of the foregone is that in building partnerships, charity should begin at home. Sustainable strategic partnerships should be built with national and, when necessary, subnational stakeholders. Professor Walter Vermeulen, University of Utrecht, Netherlands, a keynote speaker who addressed the topic, "The Wicked Problem of Waste, Export and Imports in the Context of Creating a Circular Economy, the Art of Figuring Out," said, "I see things graphically, but brings me better insights. And in testing them with others, it gets us jointly to better insight. It is the time we need to take to better understand our world, especially our world as a social phenomena, in which we try to understand how we as social beings relate to our physical and ecological surroundings. We need to supply full system thinking. This may be one of the crucial approaches for sustainability sciences. Understand the whole system as a combined physical and social reality." In his keynote address, Dr. Folari Gbadebo-Smith, Director General, Nigerian Institute of Economic and Social Research, NISA, said, "Sustainability is always and everywhere a systemic phenomenon. System dynamics, or simulation of complex dynamic systems, is a powerful technological enabler of enhanced sustainability in socioeconomic and environmental systems." Professor Gbadebo-Smith, however, charged SESDEF by saying, "My presentation should be seen as a call to reorganization for the SESDEF, especially its course offerings and curriculum. If this center is to realize its full potential, then it must move from being just a place of teaching to one of activism. not only educating policymakers, but positioning the country for a sustainable future. While speaking on the importance of strategic partnerships to the achievement of the sustainable goals, the Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 6th Assembly, Senator Peter Adeyemo, said, "If democratic representation is effective and citizens are committed to engaging legislators for the alignment of policy outcomes to their policy expectations, the people then become the much sought-after silver bullets for sustainable development." The Vice-Chancellor of Christland University, Abeokuta, Ogun State, Professor Chinedum Peace Babalola, while commending University of Ibadan for talking about the sustainable development in Nigeria, she said, "I'm excited that the University of Ibadan started Sustainable Development Program before the world went into it. We have talked about partnerships, and I think the main issue now is implementation. How can we make the government implement what we have discussed? And we have zeroed in on the fact that the government needs to really step up to look into our own internal partnerships. Everybody should try their possible best to engage the government at local, state and federal levels to really strengthen internal partnership before going external." She further stated that when the conference is done, they should have strategies to engage active partners to provide active partnerships on sustainable development in Nigeria. Professor Pierluigi Bozzi, Coordinator, International University Network on Cultural and Biological Diversity, Italy, said the summit was a unique opportunity to highlight the need to design a research activity for the implementations of the Sustainable Development Agenda. "My expectations evaluation to this 2019 ISDS is that I'm sure the summit has achieved a great research. The involvement of Nigerian universities and institutions is quite high. The debate on sustainable development was a deep debate, and I'm sure that with the involvement of the academicians, students and civic organizations in Nigeria would guarantee huge efforts in order to achieve the sustainable development goals." Professor Buzzi further stated that collective actions, networking, partnerships and positive externality in the economy with stakeholders will enhance the formulation and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Nigeria. Professor Jimoh Saka Oladuni, the Chairman, Local Organizing Committee, LOC, said the annual ISDS was born out of the need to bring stakeholders together to discuss issues bordering on development with implementable recommendations. With the 10th year now, we have hosted several events, and very important personalities have helped us crystallize ideas that are relevant not only to the development of Nigeria, but to Africa as a whole. On the 10th summit, our aim was to come out with concrete recommendations on issues, policy matters that bordered on sustainable development in Nigeria, and you could see from the presentation so far that these are the issues that touched directly on the lives of individuals and the government of Nigeria. We hoped that after the summit we will collate all the papers, not only publish them in readable materials, we could also send them to media houses for policy briefs to share with lawmakers, great institutions, and at the end of the day, we hope that some of the implementations could help develop our country, Professor Jimoh said. Presentations were made by various resource persons at the summit, which include Dr. Folarin Gbadebo-Smith, Director General, Nigeria Institute of Economic and Social Research, NISA, Professor Risikat O. Dauda, University of Lagos, Professor Adeolu Adewuyi, Director, University of Ibadan School of Business, Professor Walter Vermeulen, University of Utrecht, Mrs. Abimbola Sholanke, the Senior Special Assistant to Ekiti State Governor on SDGs, Professor Olu Ajakaye, Executive Chairman, African Center for Shared Development Capacity Building, Professor Olanriwaju Olanio, University of Ibadan, Professor Ngozi Odiaka, Co-Director, SDSN, Nigeria, and Engineer Shuaibu Issa, National Coordinator, IBB ISDFC, Senator Peter Adeyemo, Mr. Olusheye Oyelere, Director General, Dawn Commission, Ibadan, and Professor Agnes Antai, University of Calabar, Nigeria, Dr. Afolabi Emmanuel Olowokere, Head, Economic Research and Policy Management, Securities and Exchange Commission, Abuja, among other resource persons who through their paper presentations provided solutions to the sustainable development of the nation. Meanwhile, a session during the conference was organized by the Youth Network Coordinator, ISDS Nigeria, Mr. Mutiu Kolawole Ambali, for the second National Youth SDG Symposium 2019. Among the participants, resource persons and students of the Center for Sustainable Development, CESDEV, University of Ibadan, to brainstorm on the theme Youth as Strategic Partners for the Achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, where presentations were made by resource persons while they made more substantial solutions to the sustainable development of Nigeria. At the eventful ceremony was the Vice-Chancellor of Chrisland University, Abeokuta, Ogun State, Professor Chinedum Peace Babalola, the Vice-Chancellor of Osun State University, Osogbo, Professor Labode Popola, the Vice-Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Professor Abel Idowu Olayinka, ably represented by the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor K.O. Adebowale, Professor Walter Vermeulen, University of Utrecht, Netherlands, Mrs. Abimbola Sholanke, the Senior Special Assistant to Ekiti State Governor on SDGs, Ms. Vanessa Turner, Director, SDGs Financing, SDSN, New York, Dr. Farai Kap Fudzarua, University of Pretoria, South Africa, Professor Adeni Igbadegeshi, former Vice-Chancellor, Ladoke Akintola University, Ogbomoso, Professor Olu Ajakaye, African Center for Shared Development Capacity Building, Dr. Folarin Gbadebo Smith, Director General, Nigerian Institute of Social and Economic Research, NISA, Professor Isaac Olawale Albert, Professor of African History and Peace and Conflict Studies Consultant, Professor Muhammad Kuta Yahaya, Faculty of Agricultural Science, University of Ibadan, Dr. Ibrahim Bari, UCAD, Senegal, Professor Grace Ofoma, Chair, Thematic Group on Education, SDSN Nigeria, Mr. Adebinka Aderomu, Head, Operations, Development Practices Academy, DEPRA, Fola Adebayo, Nigeria Institute of Animal Science, Abuja, Professor Adeolu Adewuyi, Director, School of Business, University of Ibadan, Professor Kehinde Kester, Department of Adult Education, University of Ibadan, Mujisola Akinsoya, Executive Director, Women for Peace and Gender Equality Initiative, Okelewo, Abeokuta, Ogun State, Dr. Fumi Akinyele, Executive Director, Food Basket Foundation International, Ibadan, Nigeria, Ambassador Caroline Usipedo Omonie, National Coordinator, Civil Society Advanced Forum on SDGs, Noble Delta Women Resources Center, Asaba, Nigeria, Crystal Chigbu, Executive Director, Irede Foundation, Lagos, Professor Ngozi Odiaka, Dr. Christiana Egbeola, Dr. Okpadeji Olusegun, Dr. Afolabi Emmanuel Olowokere, and Are of Ofikiland, Obagbenga Adeoye, among other participants across the world who graced the conference to find lasting solutions to the sustainable development growth for the nation. Keynote speakers at the summit were all giving awards of participation during the conference. It's worthy of note that 114 book of abstracts were presented at the 10th Annual Ibadan Sustainable Development Summit ISDS 2019 conference. Short video, drama and song presentations were performed to thrill the participants at the conference. In line with the popular saying, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, a dinner night was organized at the end of the summit where all resource persons and participants ate delicious food with assorted drinks while they danced to the rave of the moment, making the 10th Annual Ibadan Sustainable Development Summit ISDS 2019 a memorable event.